Hello, and thank you everybody for being here today. I would like to start to thank the Women's Lobby of Slovenia for both giving this conference and especially for inviting me to participate. It's a great honor, and I'm very pleased that Iceland is participating in a conference like this. For me, it's also important to bring back knowledge from Slovenia because we, after all, are dealing with the same problems, with total mistrust in the political and the economic system, and there is a political turmoil in my country as well. As Sonja told you, I'm a member of the parliament since 2009. I am now in opposition. I am a member of the Social Democratic Party of Iceland. I am chair of the Welfare Committee, which is the Committee of Social Affairs and Health. I was as well in the last period, and I was also for a period of time chair of the Budget Committee, so I have unfortunately personal relationship with austerity measures. I have a personal experience of dealing with them. I just decided to start with this picture because I think it's very beautiful. It shows you women, they know as we do where they are heading, and the run will be easier if they all run together. We are all kinds of women, but if we are in this together, the run will be easier and we will get there faster. We in Iceland are proud of being number one. I have to have this here so I can see what I'm telling you. Yes, we do top the the list of the World Economic Forum for Global Gender Gap for the last 6 years. So we have the least gender gap in the world for 6 consecutive years, and this is all measures after the collapse of the Icelandic banks. And the main strengths in Iceland are the political power of women, the education, the situation in education for women, and the health services. But our weaknesses lies in economic power and the labor market. And we can be proud of this situation on the list, but nevertheless, we have problems with gender pay gap. We have problem with gendered violence. We haven't ratified, for example, the Istanbul Convention. And those two issues, the gender pay gap and the gender violence, are the two most obvious signs of women's oppression in this world. There we participate with other women. I wanted to show you a few pictures from the campaign in Iceland during the years. Of course, we have a long history of women's fight for equal rights, but this is from the International Year of Women in 1975, and then the Icelandic women decided to take a day off. On the right wing, it was a day off. On the left wing, it was a strike. They couldn't actually deal with what to call it. So you have different names for it, but they united. And they didn't prepare it very well. They were very nervous, and they thought that nobody would come then. And they didn't go to work. They didn't do the household tasks, and most of them left their children in their hands of the fathers. And this is what happened. Women came from all over. They were so ready for this moment. And this was a great empowering moment for women in Iceland, and also for many of the girls who were there with their mothers. And what happened then is that we got Vigdís Finnbogadóttir, the first nationally elected female president in the world. And that was also a very empowering moment for women in Iceland. And few years later, we got the Women's Alliance. They ran for parliamentary elections and got for the first time 3 women in. You can see them there. And this is a picture from 1983, but the lower one is from 1991. This was the party group in the parliament, those 5 or 6 women. And this was a political action. They went shopping, and then they came to the cashier and said, we are only going to pay the proportion of our salaries. And they were always doing things like this. And they were really popular and had great effect in Iceland. And those women are my political mothers. And it's a great luggage to have into life. They taught me that no one can set the agenda for you. If you think something is important, then take it to the political field. And this is just a picture to show that when they came, the white line, the number of women in parliament increased, and afterwards the rest of the political parties had to do something. That was obvious. And here is the parental leave. From 1997, fathers had independent right for 2 weeks and for 3 months in 2003. So today, the system is that women have 3 months, the men have 3 months, and then you have 3 months that they can share as they wish themselves. Usually, of course, it is the woman that takes them, but almost every father in Iceland takes 3 years for parental leave, and this 3 months, 3 years, 3 months, and this law has been a total success and changed a lot in Iceland. And when it comes to sick children and so on, then now the fathers are much more participating and taking more leave from the labor market because of this. This has changed. This has been a great change maker. And of course, what was the aim of the law was to ensure children's care from both parents, but also to enable both men and women to coordinate family life and work outside the home. But now to the political issues of today. And we had a total collapse of the financial system in Iceland in 2008. We had 3 large banks. Talking about BNP, they were 10 times the BNP of Iceland. If the United States have an economy that is 1,000 times the Icelandic economy. If those 3 banks would have been a company in the United States, it would have been the 3rd largest bankruptcy of the United States in the world, in their history. So it was a huge economic collapse. And it caused total mistrust in politics. And here you can see protests. It took some time for them to evolve, and this happened in January 2009, and the government had to resign. And this had happened when we joined the NATO in the 40s. Then we had protests and difficult times, but this was unique in the history of Iceland. And you can see fires burning, and this was quite fascinating in a way to see people rise up, but it was also a bit scary because nobody knew what would happen. But what do you do when you have all the banks gone bankrupt? Yes, you hire women. You get women to fix things. The one on the left is still there, but the one on the right was prosecuted because he was a part of the elite that destroyed the financial system. And what do you do when the guys have messed everything up in the political system, you elect a woman for prime minister for the first time. And this is Jóhanna Sigurðardóttir, a former leader of my party. She was the first female prime minister of Iceland, and she was also the first openly gay head of state in the world, this wonderful lady. And she formed the first government with equal number of men and women in Iceland. And later she appointed the first female minister of finance in Iceland in 2011, and the second one in 2012. The later one, she should have been the first one, but she was on maternity leave. So when her twins were old enough, she came back and became the second finance minister, female finance minister of Iceland. And the government of Jóhanna, which was governing with the left Green Party, it was the first left-wing government in Iceland. They, of course, within the social policy, they established a special watch for gender equality, a special watch for social well-being, and both of those were reporting to the government about measures to take. And there were a lot of measures taken for indebted households and businesses. We are actually still dealing with indebtedness of households. It's a hot political issue today. We had rise in unemployment from 2%, which is very moderate, to 10%. And therefore we had a very active labor market and educational policy, especially for the youth. And in the economic policy, we had budget deficit and unemployment to deal with. And state debt had increased enormously due to the collapse. We had austerity measures, but we proportionally cut less in the social systems and the health system. But since they are such a large proportion of the budget, it was necessary to do some cutting there. And it was some cutting, but it was less than in other sectors. Then we introduced progressive tax on income, tax on wealth, and tax on the fishery quotas. Because we should always remember, both in Iceland and in Europe and wherever we are, that money is not the problem, it's the distribution of money that is the problem. We made investments in infrastructure and innovative and creative sectors. It wasn't much money that we could invest with, but that was used for means that would be increasing the quality of life and help new businesses to establish. And with our concentration, when we were doing cuttings in the pension system, we always safeguarded those with the lowest income, and also the progressive tax helped us. So the Gini coefficients, we increased equality, income equality, from 28 to 24. And this is quite unique, I think. Then we always get appraisal from abroad. Yes, if we compare Iceland internationally, then people say, oh, this is great, and it is, but for the people living in Iceland, those weren't great times, because they, of course, suffered. So we should never forget that. Gender equality in the labor market, we have women are very active in the labor market. They are 78% of them are active there, 85% of men, but 38% of women have part job compared to 14% of men. The adjusted gender pay gap is scam. It's 7 to 16%. And it's smallest in the capital area and higher when you come to the more dense rural areas. I have here a list of some laws and action plans for gender equality in the labor market. We introduced laws with quotas on boards, which have been great success. First, there was some opposition. When we had the new minister after the elections, now she was going to abolish them, she said. Then there was a man from the business sector, a very prominent man who wrote an article, and he said, we wouldn't want to lose all those qualified women. Now we have the chance to get rid of the unqualified men, and this is really doing good for the Icelandic business sector. So we want to keep those laws, please. And we had a 3-year plan on implementing gender budgeting, and we had plan on action on gender equality regarding wages. And that was done in coalition with the social partners. When it comes to violence against women, it's quite a recent research. It's from, I'm not sure if it's from 2011 or 2012, but it's a recent one, research. 42% of women have experienced some kind of violence, 22 in close relationships. This is for the country that is number 1 of the list for the World Economic Forum. And that tells us that economic situation doesn't tell everything. 30% have experienced physical violence, thereof 20% in close relationships. 24% have experienced sexual violence, 6% in close relationships. So obviously, this is a severe problem in Iceland. I wanted to tell you a little bit about laws and action plans against gender-based violence. In 2009, we had a law forbidding the buying of prostitution, of sexual services. And in 2010, we banned strip clubs and private dance because of connections with trafficking. We have a law authorizing the removal of the perpetrator from home when domestic violence is suspected. We had the plan of action produced by government on the protection of children from sexual abuse and exploitation and on services for child victims. And we have recently renewed our plan from 2009, a national action plan against trafficking in human beings. And of course, it's always easy one thing is to pass a law, the other thing is to implement it. And I'm very happy to say that we have a new police officer in the capital area, a woman, who is bringing her task force to the police. And they have made success in other parts of the country in reducing and interfering to violence in the home. So I think we are really, there are very positive signs about implementation, but those have to be safeguarded all the time. This doesn't happen automatically, and laws are even worse if they are not being. It's even worse to have the law if you don't implement them, because then it's a false world. You think things are better than they are because you have the laws. Women and poverty. Icelanders in general run a low risk for material deprivation, but it is less today than it was in 2007. 6.7 compared to 7.4%. The risk of poverty rate is higher. It's 10.1, was in 2007, but is a little bit lower, 9.3 today. Women run higher risk than men for material deprivation, and the highest risk of material deprivation is for children of single mothers. And this is a great scam for my rich society, and something that is really, it's in the debate today, and a lot of organizations that are both doing research and giving recommendations to the government. But the good news is that the lowest risk of material deprivation is for people over 64. But unfortunately, I do not have the figures. We have the figures somewhere, but I didn't find them. But I am more than certain that women run higher risk there than men in this age group. Short on women and health, we have quite high life expectancy, 83.9 years, but men's life expectancy increases at a higher rate than women's. They are catching up with women. Number of women diagnosed with cancer is increasing. Chlamydia, too, is too frequent among young women. We now actually have vaccination, not against chlamydia, but against vaginal cancer, newly introduced. We do screening programs for breast and vaginal cancer. Disability or rehabilitation assessments are more frequent among women than men. And people feel a little less healthy in 2013 than they did in 2004. And women in all age groups feel less healthy than they did a few years ago. And it's only in the oldest age group where people feel more healthy than before, but then it's only 50% of women over the age of 64 that answer the question, is your health very good or good? Only 50% of them say yes. And these are quite young women, many of them. And the figure for men is 60%. Women and reproductive health, as you can see, here I have a figure on sterilization operations, and it's decreasing among women. 20 of all sterilization operations every year, 27% is women, 73% is men, which is a very good thing. The fertility rate in Iceland is very high. It's 2.03 children per woman. It's the highest in Europe, I think. The average age of mother giving birth to first child is 26.9 years. We are very good in assisted fertilization, but the economic support has lowered a lot for that. And child and mother mortality rate in relation with birth is almost non-existing. It's among the very lowest in the world. So here we have the challenges ahead. I think it's very important for us both to support and cooperate with women around the world. We have to fight gender stereotypes. They are, and the pornification of society is really harsh on both young women and men. And we have all kinds of stereotypes to fight. We have to fight gender-based violence, increase women's economic and political power, bridge the gender pay gap, and strengthen the health and welfare systems. But there are many measures for the former government of Jóhanna. Many things were done in a very good way. In others, people were disappointed. My party endured a severe loss in the elections 2013. Johanna had been in politics for 34 years when she left the scene. She is a statistical outlaw because she has an unusual long period in the parliament compared to other women. A lot of men have been there for more than 30 years, but she is the only woman. She was always fighting for human rights and for equality. And when she was leaving office, there was a grassroots movement that said, let's gather and thank her with red roses. And this is a picture from that. This is her last day in office. It was a beautiful day, and it was organized by some people I don't know that wanted to say thank you, Johanna, for all you did, because it was a very difficult period. She burned all her political capital during those years. And what do you do when the old lady has cleaned up the mess? You elect the young guys again. Traditional right-wing politics are back. Continuous austerity measures, lowering of taxes, ideas about privatization. People have started gathering again, thousands of them, to protest, but they are in power. There you see the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister, and there you see me. I'm not very happy. This is the former Minister of Finance who was debating in the Parliament, and the new Minister of Finance was saying, take it easy, don't get too excited. And I thought, if I look at them, I will hit them, so I'm not going to look into their direction. But now we don't know what the future will be, if it will be guys like that or girls like us who will decide where to go for the future. Thank you.